In the mist-choked hollows of eastern Kentucky, where time clings like moss to the stones and secrets settle deeper than roots, one case has haunted both historians and psychologists for nearly 2 centuries. It began in November of 1834, when a traveling preacher, Reverend Ezekiel Morrison, arrived at the remote Baptist community of Pine Hollow not with a choir or entourage, but with 2 daughters. Twins. 9 years old. Rebecca and Rachel. Pine Hollow was barely a blip on any map, a village carved into the wilds, guarded more by superstition than fences. It had no newspaper, no post office. But it had a church. And it had Pastor William Phillips, who kept a journal. That journal, forgotten for over 150 years and uncovered during a 1987 demolition, would reveal something terrifying: 3 days that shook a town to its soul, all because of 2 little girls who knew things they could never have known. The arrival. The Morrisons arrived just as the sun slipped behind the ridges, casting long shadows over the weathered church. Ezekiel, barely in his 30s but already gray and worn, carried his daughter Rachel the final miles. She was fevered. Rebecca walked beside him, her face tired, yet strangely alert. Pastor Phillips welcomed them into his modest home. But from the moment he looked into the girl's eyes, he wrote, he felt something off. Not evil. Not angelic. Just too knowing. That evening, over a simple stew, Rebecca looked at the pastor's wife and asked, "Did your roses by the eastern fence survive the blight from 3 summers ago?" The spoon clattered from her hand. No one outside Pine Hollow knew about that blight. No one should have. When asked how she knew, Rebecca simply smiled. "I saw it in a dream." The hidden bottle. The next morning, Ezekiel sat by the fire, Bible open but unread. "The girls had disturbing dreams," he murmured. Before Phillips could ask more, Rebecca stepped forward and said something that made the pastor go cold. "There's something under the 3rd floorboard from the altar, something hidden that shouldn't be there." Rachel added softly, "A brown bottle, wrapped in a blue baby's blanket." Pastor Phillips staggered back. No one knew about that bottle. He'd hidden it during a moment of weakness, his struggle with whiskey, wrapped in the blanket that once belonged to his infant son who died years before. Not even his wife knew. But the twins knew. Whispers turned to wounds. Sunday morning, Ezekiel preached. It was powerful, but routine. What happened after was not. As the congregation trickled out, Rebecca approached Samuel Turner, a respected farmer. "Mr. Turner," she said, "it's not stealing if you return the money before anyone finds out, right?" Turner's face drained of color. He had been skimming from the collection plate, small amounts to cover debts. No one could have known. Then Rachel turned to Martha Whitfield, the elderly widow revered for her moral virtue. "Your husband didn't die in a farming accident, did he?" she said gently. "You still get letters from Missouri." Gasps. Martha collapsed to her pew in shock. Her husband had abandoned her 15 years ago. She'd faked his death to protect her children. She kept his letters hidden in a box beneath her floorboards. One by one, the twins quietly confronted others. Dr. Hayes, reminded of patients who had died under his care due to incomplete medical training. The Millers, exposed for hiding their mentally disabled son in the attic out of shame. Young Thomas Brett, who had been meeting a married woman in secret. They didn't accuse. They simply knew. And then Rebecca stepped up to the altar. The secret beneath the cross. She placed her small hand on the wooden cross and spoke. "This is sacred ground. But it's been stained." The room fell deathly silent. "The Whitman family didn't die in a house fire, did they, Pastor Phillips? They died here, in this room. And some of you know why." The air left the church like it had been punched. The Whitman family, Jacob, Mary, and their 9-year-old twin daughters, Hope and Faith, had been the heart of Pine Hollow in 1818. Their deaths were blamed on a fire. But what Rebecca described shattered that narrative. Faith had a birthmark on her left shoulder, she said. Hope had one on her right ankle. Faith was wearing her blue Sunday dress. Hope, a nightgown. She had a fever that night. She knew what no one could. What no one should. "They hid here, behind the altar," Rachel added. But they were found. And they were silenced. The cracking of silence. Elder Thompson stood. His voice shook. "How could you know this?" The girls gave no answer. But the congregation did. One by one, fragments of buried guilt began surfacing. Mrs. Carter whispered of bloodstains that wouldn't scrub clean from the floorboards. Old Benjamin Foster recalled strange cries echoing through the church at night. Dr. Hayes admitted to finding bone fragments while repairing a foundation wall, human remains, mixed in the mortar. If the Whitmans had been buried in the church walls, then every prayer, every hymn, had been sung over their hidden graves. The unknowable gift. Pastor Phillips finally turned to Ezekiel. How do they know these things? Ezekiel's eyes were heavy with pain. Their mother, Sarah, she had the second sight. But what the girls have goes far beyond dreams. They feel things. They remember things they never lived. I thought it was a blessing. He trailed off. Rebecca looked up at her father. It's not always a blessing. Rachel added, sometimes we feel things we wish we didn't. 3 days and gone. On the third day, the Morrison family left Pine Hollow. No one tried to stop them. Pastor Phillips never saw them again. But he recorded every word. Every event. He locked the journal away, until it was found in the ruins of the church a century and a half later. Legacy of the twins. To this day, no one can explain how 2 9-year-old girls could know the buried sins of strangers, or why every detail they spoke turned out to be verifiably true. No one knows what happened to the Morrison twins. Or if they ever surfaced again under different names. But if you ever find yourself in a forgotten town, and a child looks at you like they already know what you've hidden away. Last part. See subscribe my channel.